Welcome to the town of Charlton, excuse me, town of Charlton, Massachusetts Board of Selectmen meeting and joint boards meeting. There are just a few housekeeping rules we'd like to keep in mind. We're going to try. There are a lot of groups in here. There are a lot of super bright people, and super bright people like to talk a lot. So we're going to limit them to 5 minutes. And if one topic tends to get into the weeds a little bit, I'm probably gonna ask you to go off and maybe have a joint committee meeting if it's FinCom or school committee or something. Because the ultimate idea out of all of that is to get this done and completed by 8 p.m. Because there have been complaints in the past that these meetings drag on too long, and then people don't come back to phone. So on that, welcome everyone. We can kick off.
Pick someone to start.
Anybody want to start? We could. No, Andrew, sit down. I asked. There are some pretty huge projects coming up in town. Our revenue side. Anybody that drives down by Ted's might see that in the sky. There are also a lot of projects that are coming up on the spending side that we need to be concerned about as well. We're not going to, as Dan Dow would say a year ago, he said, before you guys go off spending money like a bunch of drunken sailors, we need to figure out what we really need, those were Dan's words, and and it's actually funny. And none of us. The town's not going to let anyone do that. Town meeting certainly not going to let anyone do that. So So on the revenue side, we have Amazon, that tiny little building up on the hill you might see. $3 million in revenue potential. We expect a check after occupancy in August or September of next year. On the spending side, there's recently been formed a fire station, a fire substation committee to put a fire substation to number one, it would alleviate the problems we have with station number 2 that's about to collapse. And 2, it would, as the chief talked about, it would relieve the response time on the south end of town. So they're thinking somewhere out there, there's a procurement out there. Some thoughts were putting it in front of Heritage School, 4-bay, manned, full-time, put Tower 1, rescue, ambulance. It all makes a whole lot of sense. And it, for the town meeting voters, it might be, it's probably more sellable than the whole public safety building that we tried twice and failed. And go.
Sorry,
Anybody? No, no. Go right ahead.
Glad to be here. Diane Doherty, Recreation Commissioner. Thank you for having this meeting. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking all of our sports leagues, boards, presidents, volunteers, because as commissioner, we couldn't do what we do without their support, without their cooperation, ideas. And I try to meet with Andrew before every single one of our meetings, and we go over everything that we might need or have questions about, and it's really helpful. So communication is great. And I'm sure if he can't answer the questions, I'm sure he would go to your board. Right now we're working, we just received some money for a pickleball court idea. We're looking at possible locations, scouting out, trying to find some ideas on where we could put that. Pickleball is pretty popular, I hear. We also are working, we have a band shell committee formed, and one of our commissioners is on that committee and moving that project forward for location over at the Cultural Arts Center. We had a little bit of vandalism, well, I should say a lot of vandalism recently. We're working with Jeff IT and Andrew and trying to get some cameras, enhanced security. Hopefully if anybody sees something, they say something, report it to me, we get it to the police, and hopefully we can get that under control. So I think that's about it. I hope it's under 5 minutes.
I would have warned you, but no, that's, what is the pickle thing?
Pickleball court? I went out.
I honestly have no idea what
I
that
went out to
is.
Cedar Lake in Sturbridge. They have it's a court within, a lot of them put it within tennis courts. So they have a tennis court and they line the tennis courts with the pickleball courts. And I guess it's very similar, only on a smaller scale. And it's a small plastic ball with a racket, and I guess the rules are a little different but easier. I've never played it, but it's very popular. So I'm hoping that we can find a good location and bring it to the people in town. It's kind of
That was a really great Scout Eagle project.
Yeah.
That's a really great Eagle project, if you wanted to put that out there and see if,
Yeah, that would be good.
they're always looking for the things,
Yeah.
and that's a really unique,
Yeah.
fun project for them.
So that's on our agenda for the next few months to try to find a location at least and move it forward.
Dan, quick question from, oh, I'm sorry, no, Michael.
Well, he was first.
That's okay. Oh, Josh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the pickleball court, I think you could also do it on the basketball court.
We just relined our basketball court and we're having some trouble with drainage coming down from the hill, and we've got big cracks that we're trying to address. But with that newly relined area, we really don't want to there. Because we're just having so much difficulty. There's a lot of, it almost look like frost heaves. So we've got the company coming back to fix those lines pretty soon. The playground, I forgot to mention the playground. The playground is in the process of being repaired. We've got a couple of pieces that were broken due to vandalism. The parts are on order. So you might go down there and see some things missing, but the parts are on order, and as with everything, all the shipments are delayed. Manufacturing is delayed. So we're hoping within the next month or two that we'll have those pieces put back together. So.
I just had a question, you answered some of it specific to the van. Is there a specific area that it or a specific incident that's going on with the vandalism? You said there's a lot of it.
I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry.
You said there was a specific incident of vandalism. Where is that exactly? And you said cameras.
Well,
What would
they've
that be trying to
been
do?
tagging the skate park with red paint, black paint. When it's profanity, we try to get down there and cover it right away. We've already repainted some of the surfaces, especially coated paint used for the ramps. We can't just use regular paint because it's a textured, so we don't want the kids to slip. They've targeted the nest, which is the softball field area. They've been tagging, they've destroyed a couple of porta potties on us. And inside, they've broken handles and pulled things off the walls. Inside, they're tagging as well. And when it comes, if it's profanity, we try to take care of it right away and paint over it. But we've just been cleaning. There's been a lot of cleaning involved in taking care of that.
Surprising, it's such a populated area. I mean, when it's active, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, the library was wonderful enough to extend their lighting a couple of hours into the evening, so hopefully that will deter some of the traffic that goes down to the park. The problem is that the cameras on the library don't feed all the way down to the playground, and there's been tagging and destruction down there too.
So is the cameras just to deter future, I mean, are you guys trying to figure out exactly what's going on? Obviously, it's probably kids, but.
Yeah, we're trying to catch them. The only problem is we've noticed a lot of it happens at night, and because of the lights, don't pick it up, then the camera doesn't activate the motion.
Yeah, there was some problems over at Maynard Field too with some white paint, and they did catch those culprits. Those culprits
That's a
are
little bit
gone.
more secluded, yeah, but I mean, we're in the library, I mean, where there's something going on, it's just so many people there.
Not at night, though. And it did come up at a few of our meetings.
Yeah,
and
so
the
we're
cameras
working on
are
it. We're not ignoring it. I go down, I call it my field survey every single week, and I try to check everything. so far so good, so far. Yeah.
Diane, out of curiosity, where do we end up on the ADA work that was gonna be done down there?
We're in the process of getting plans. They had a meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, last week, to shore up some of the architectural drawings, and Andrew just informed me today there's an email waiting for me to sign off some paperwork. So we're moving forward fast, which is nice.
Because we
Yeah.
appropriated that, what, a year and a half ago now?
No, it was
2 years? I can't remember.
3 years.
Yeah, like they all blend together.
Yeah, they're bringing water sewer down there too,
Yeah.
so that, before we weren't going to do
Oh,
that. But now we're gonna actually do the snack shack over,
Oh, good.
and it's gonna have water sewer.
All right, that's great news. Do we have it, like, I know, it sounds like the plans are still being finalized, but what's our rough, if you will, shovel in the ground estimate to actually start?
Well, it probably depends on a lot of the money too. We had town meeting money voted a couple of years back for it, but we dug into that with the engineering plans. So we're hoping that, we can keep it within the budget. We'll have to see.
Yeah, with some of the Amazon money that we're getting, it's supposed to supplement
Mhm.
anywhere
Right.
we're above that, but hopefully, probably late spring, I'm hoping at this rate.
All right, good.
Depending on how the remaining
Okay.
engineering works. Yeah.
Yeah. I know
Cool.
football would like make late
Yeah.
spring because they don't want it to interfere with the fall leagues.
No, works for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really the purpose of the meeting tonight, and I probably could have elaborated better on that earlier, is more, just so the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, right? That's kind of what we're hearing, and we're hearing a lot of good things about that. So we don't always know. People have questions, and they don't always know, like, we're working on that, or we're not. So
Yeah.
I'll move it down. And I also left off, and I apologize, I left off the school committee, because one of our larger expenditures this year is going to be a new school roof. And I apologize for that, but you'll be up front and center right after this gentleman.
Hi, my name is Don Contapi. I'm with the Activities Council. We're located down at 4 Dresser Hill Road. And I just want to give a brief synopsis of some of the things that just happened and what's going to be happening in the future. We just had a successful return to the Blueberry Festival, which was great. Coming up will be in October, on the 15th of October, that's a Saturday, 2 to 5 p.m. Chuck and Mud will be giving a concert, and it will be with the whole damn band, so it's their full band, not just Chuck and Mud. That should be pretty exciting. We have Trunk or Treat coming up. There's a lecture by John Root, who is a horticulturist, who will be giving a talk. I believe it's going to be on edible plants or edible wild plants, and that will be coming up in October. We're not sure exactly what the date is. I want to try and coordinate some things with the Charlton Garden Club to make sure it's something that they can make. We're going to have the return of the Grizzly Coffee House. In the past, we had a coffee house which was a open mic / jam session. It was a lot of fun in the past. Things have gone up and down with regard to that, so we want to make sure we have a set date where everyone knows where it's going to be. So we're going to be working on that. Hopefully we'll get that started in the fall sometime, and if not the fall, then early spring. There are several schools in there. There's Central Mass School of Music is located at the Activity Center. We have Pierre Thurio, who is our resident artist. There's Lee Irish Step Dance. There are the Pasture Prime Players, which is a performing arts group which calls it home. And one of the things that may be happening next year is we're looking to start a Toastmasters Club. And I'm sure everyone here who has to give speeches would really appreciate the chance to make their speeches better by becoming a Toastmaster. We hope that that's going to be starting sometime in the spring of next year. And we're very excited about the fact that there's a band shell which will hopefully go on the back end of the property, and we think that could really expand the type of arts programs that can happen there. Not just with regard to music, but other things such as there could be outdoor theater, you can imagine. With the music program in the Dudley Charlton school system, you can imagine them using this for some concerts. And we're very excited about what might happen with that. And I'm free to answer any questions anyone might have.
No, Don, I'd probably be, oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Sorry, I was just gonna add that, I was at a birthday party at your, back barn facility that you rent out now, and it was fantastic over the weekend, so it's a really nice space that you guys have created.
Yeah, I'd be remiss, as Steve mentioned, we recently formed a fire station subcommittee. We're also looking at a community center subcommittee. So I know that's one of the areas that we're also looking at amongst others. But the overall thought being that we're trying to at least develop plans for potentially a combined senior center, better activity center, et cetera, to fit in with the band show work, et cetera. I know Don and Diane and others have actually, Karen, I think's poking around here somewhere, have volunteered to really help out on that. But when we think around expenses going forward, and that's gonna be a constant theme that you're gonna hear me talk around tonight. You know, as Steve mentioned, we're gonna have X amount of dollars coming in, but I can't help thinking about that old Warren Beatty movie, when his character helped build Vegas. He was selling more shares than he actually had. And we have to be cognizant of that, of just because we're getting X amount of dollars in, we can't expend more than that. And it's very easy for all of us to say, well, yeah, we're gonna get X millions of dollars in, whatever it is. But the schools are gonna get some, and via the Chapter 70 formula. But then when we start taking down off of that, it's gonna be around serious prioritization. And that's where I think meetings like this can help to say, so what does everybody have planned? And to kind of get those wheels turning to say, all right, where are we really gonna spend it? At the same time, knowing that there's an awful lot of people in town who would rather just prefer lower taxes. So that's something else that we have to think about. So, you know, as we go around and talk around our projects, our wish lists, our status, keep that in mind that none of this money is guaranteed for anybody at this point, so.
And I'm remiss in not acknowledging one other thing. Our cable television is also located in the activity center. I don't know why I forgot that, but.
No, you are fine. Really, that. No. Drew, we love you.
My consent to all of this, because I know how hard you guys are working, it's to what Bill said, we do have expenditures coming up, we do have some money coming in from Amazon. This is with the disbursement of the occupancy permit back to 2023. But these people are working so hard within trying to get the grants that are matching to the money that we're receiving from the Amazon. That job on its own, I've had a taste of it. Thank you so much. This is awesome. So we have a chance of actually matching the Amazon money to the grant that Don and others are working for. So this is tremendous.
There's the potential if we
that.
can come up with a good plan for an extra $200,000 towards the band shell project, which I think could be used towards improving the groundwork. I could imagine it being a picnic area kind of thing. So you know, think about going out into the Berkshires and watching a concert.
Yeah,
And
that's
The
awesome.
main thing to consider is the parking.
yeah.
We have
You know,
parking in Mania.
You better build a shell before you see how much parking you can get available.
Right, so there's a misconception that we're gonna have 5,000 person, concert.
Wait, we're not getting James Taylor on the phone?
I wish we could.
Okay.
My experience has been that probably the most people I've ever seen going for a concert has been something like 50 to 60 people. But we do have, and this is something we would coordinate with recreation, we do have the Maynard Field, and there's also the elementary school parking lot, which should be available. And the idea would be to probably do some improvements so that there's an easy walkway to get from the elementary school parking lot to where the band shell would be. And I think the idea of where the band shell is going to be located is probably going to be pushed a little bit back as we've rethought some things. We want to make sure that it isn't too close to the fields, and we also want to make sure that there's enough room and that it's far enough away so that it wouldn't cause problems with neighbors.
Okay, and then if we,
I'd still like to comment on it. I go to Auburn's shell, and they average over 100 people, no problem. Their parking is very limited. They only let the handicapped come in, and the other people have to go down the street, park here, park there. And that's what we might come up with on maybe one or two times in the season, but that's not gonna fit.
Yeah, I seriously doubt that there's going to be that big of a problem with the parking, just from my experience. not just here, but I've played in bands which have played on band shells before, and you usually do not get more than 100 people is an amazing show for people to show up with. Usually you can expect a much smaller amount of people to show
Yeah, I
up.
think
It's
it's
great.
good to point,
That's
I think it'd be
awesome.
good to point out that Auburn will be pulling out of the city of Worcester. It's unlikely that many people from Worcester are gonna come all the way to Charlton. So I think that would limit your crowd.
Well, it also depends. What I found in the past is that generally bands have followings, and a lot of times you don't see Charlton people there. You see people who follow the bands, and I'd like to see that change a little bit, where I think if we had a program where there's a, every, say, 2 to 3 weeks there was going to be a band performing at the band shell, then I think people would probably schedule and make, look forward to those kind of things versus just having things in the past where, I remember there was some concert series up at the technical school, and no one showed up to those. And they eventually canceled some because.
Okay, that's great, thank you. We probably ought to move on to the schools now, as we're going down, as we're going around.
That's a lot of us. Thank you for having us.
There's this thing about a roof or something?
Yeah, first, we really need to thank the town of Charlton and the town of Dudley for really going through and voting that, to fund that roof. I think that that's gonna make a big difference, to our kids and to our longevity of that school. So that's really a good investment, I think, for our future. And also, it's going to be updating our fire panels to have better connectivity with our fire department, as well as some upgrading of security measures. So very important these days. We're going through our Shepherd Hill feasibility study coming up, and that's a big ticket item, like a big kind of item that we're working on. It is a big ticket item. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
It is.
It's an important conversation.
It
that
is.
Yeah.
As you said, Ms. Borowski, that we're here to talk about, and
Yep.
Yeah.
how do we
Well,
know,
no.
how do we know what we need if we don't have a feasibility study? So
I get it.
there needs to be that step.
Yeah, but I have to say, like, it was great to be finally accepted into the MSBA, like, into that program, and to be recognized for the fact that our building does need some work. So that was good.
We were formally accepted, or it was contingent before, right? So, actually, I don't even think I know that.
I'm gonna let
Okay.
Rich talk on that one.
This is Chair, Mrs. Cameron.
Yes, I'm
No,
sorry.
yes.
School Committee, we also have Mrs. Terry from School Committee.
Thank you. Sorry, I
Ms.
should
Zeller,
introduce-
Ms. Costello, and Ms. Panzik down there from School Committee. We also have the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Brian Ackerman, and we have Richard Matthews, the Director of Finance and Operations for the school system this evening. If I could just jump in, is it okay if I jump off? First, I want to thank you again. This is the second time I've attended this meeting, and this is great to have everybody together so we can at least, we are, in essence, a department of the town. It's good to hear all the things that are going on. So we appreciate the opportunity to not only listen, but also to be able to share some things with our town. So with MSBA, there's an application process. And MSBA is a process where it's very well spelled out, but it requires a lot of steps to it. So just being invited in doesn't mean that it's a done deal or anything of that nature. So there's a statement of interest that's applied for every year, and they actually read those, they come out and do site visits, and then they actually either invite you in or tell you to submit again next year. Update it, submit it again next year. So this is the first time that we've actually gone to the final step of being invited into what's called eligibility period to determine if we will be eligible for it. And the point of eligibility is to get to feasibility. But that still requires a lot of work. That's more of our internal work for the school system, and it prepares you as a community to take a vote on whether we should enter into feasibility. Feasibility, again, is another stage, and it requires town support to do that through town meeting as well as Board of Selectmen and all entities. It does require some financial support to get into feasibility. All of feasibility is whatever reimbursement rate MSBA provides you is reimbursed by MSBA. That's just feasibility in itself. And then feasibility lends itself to what are you going to do? And you have to put every option on the table. You can't just, even though you've heard me on record, I think, say that the building looks like a renovation project to me, which I still think, being through this, that's really where we're at. It's not a raise and rebuild. You have to still put the raise and rebuild on the table so people can see that it's going to cost $300 million or something like that. That's just a rough estimate. where renovation would be far less than that, because we still have a very solid building. So you have to go through, and again, you need town support and town votes for all those things. So right now, we're just in eligibility period after almost 15 years of applications. There was a gap of a couple of years in that 15 years, so it wasn't just a consecutive 15 years, but we did get accepted into this eligibility period at this point in time. So at best, we would come to you for support for a feasibility study, feasibility stage with an MSBA at the May town meeting. That's the timeline for that. Okay?
Can I ask this question? Is the school population continuing to rise?
No.
It's leveled off?
Yep. But MSBA has actual actuaries that calculate all of your growth and all of that, and so their funding recommendations will be based off of your population. It's not, they don't fund it at what you imagine it may be or what you think it may be. They actually crunch the numbers and fund and create a funding formula based off of enrollment, current enrollment, and projected enrollment.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
So,
What is MSBA?
Massachusetts School Building Authority. So it's a grant, it's a state grant-funded program. Actually, I think the money comes from off of some of your utility bills or something like that. Like 1 or 2 cents comes off of that, just 1 or 2 cents.
Yeah.
It goes into the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and it's run by the state treasurer. It is not affiliated with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's its own entity. A lot of regulations changed around Mass School Building Authority around 2004, 2005. So, for example, Charlton Middle School was built under a different authority. It was still considered Mass School Building Authority, but things have changed tremendously since 2004, 2005 as far as the process. That original MSBA was under DESI's, some of DESI's control and regulations.
so if everything, just for the people at home and myself, actually, so if everything were to keep rolling along the way it's going, the eligibility would be, you said at a May town meeting, and that would be an ask for?
We're in eligibility period now, which gives us roughly 270 days to get to feasibility. If we don't make it to feasibility, we can maybe ask for an extension, not always common, or it ends there and then we have to go back to statement of interest and get it back.
What's the difference, what's the cost of the town between eligibility and feasibility?
There is no cost for eligibility.
What's that?
There is no cost for eligibility, it's all work.
Okay.
It's all homework. I've submitted requesting information from both towns around birth rates, population, sales, house sales. We have to do enrollment, provide some enrollment numbers. There's a lot of work on our hands right now in preparation for feasibility.
Didn't I think there was a cost to the town?
It will be for the feasibility study, at which point, Steve, correct me.
After when we get past.
Yeah, the vote will be for
that
value
point.
for feasibility, and Mass School Building Authority does not give you a recommended figure for that. You have to come up with that on your own. So you look at like districts that have gone through feasibility, what they estimate for feasibility.
And it'll basically say, at a very high level of, all right, so here are the demographics, here's what you currently have, here's what we are projecting to have, here's your existing building and all its flaws, here are your options. And then, at that point, we'll have a much larger conversation around reno versus new build, and obviously via the district formula, what that funding would be based upon an expected reimbursement rate.
So eligibility through feasibility could be anywhere around 3 years in itself. The comment you made earlier, which people always ask, is shovel in the ground. That could be 5 years from now. So it's a very, again, methodical process. So in eligibility, again, all the work is on us. So for example, the school committee just voted to sign the compliance agreement with its 38 conditions of working with Mass School Building Authority. Next, we have to set up the building committee, which I appreciate the support in having Mike Jacobs and Richard looped on the committee representing Charlton, which you have to organize that and submit that to the Mass School Building Authority. Then there's an enrollment agreement that you have to work through during eligibility. Again, all this is internal work on our part. It's the stuff that we have to work with Mass School Building Authority to get to feasibility. And then you get to the point of bringing it to towns for support for a feasibility study. And that could be a 2-year, in itself, a 2-year process.
And the thought process is they would probably, Mass School Building Authority would probably pick up 50% of the cost.
We don't have an exact figure because it changes from year to year.
48 to 54, or?
I'd hate to give a number because then people will hang on to that, but yeah, there is a reimbursement. So for the entire feasibility, there is whatever the reimbursement rate is, the feasibility is reimbursed by that. When you get into the school building project and estimates for that, they only reimburse on certain things within the school building project. The example I've been giving everybody is, for example, site work. They will only reimburse at whatever figure they give you, 6% of site work. So the rest of the site work is 100% on the communities. So they, you know, they have their own formula with it. They'll only reimburse a certain size classroom. So if you renovate to a larger size classroom, anywhere from that value on is owned by the communities. They won't renovate a superintendent's office, so, you know, they won't pay for that. That would be on
I
the
don't think
communities.
anybody voted about
So that one's not coming forward. That's, we're very happy with our space. We're not bringing anything forward with that. But it sounds complicated, but they walk you through everything. It's
Yeah.
our job to articulate it to you as a community.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on. And that's what, when you get into feasibility, part of that feasibility studies, you have to hire a consultant that's endorsed by Mass School Building Authority to do a lot of this legwork for you as a district. But right now, all the work is on us.
Steve?
Wow. Thank you for your hard work, Kenny.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. So one, because I know the people at home are going to ask the question, because I've been asked the question.
Yeah.
We, the Board of Selectmen, have not spoken with FinCom really at all around how we're going to pay for any of this yet. And that's inclusive of around the roof that we just passed, along with the safety improvement. So now that that is passed, we as a town are on the hook to find a way to pay for it. And I'm sure each of the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen, FinCom, have our own specific ideas, but that will be coming up in further conversation. So before anyone asks, we do not have a plan or we don't have a specific plan to pay for it yet that we agreed upon. Second of all, on the feasibility study, again, as Steve mentioned, that's going to be another ask come May, and we don't know how we're going to pay for that yet. That's not saying a bad thing, because it's relatively short money in the grand scheme of things based upon a much larger investment that could happen. Honestly, as much as of a tax hawk that I am, I don't see how we can't do a feasibility study on this. But shifting gears a bit, Kathy, more for you and you and your team. No, it's nothing bad. So I know, well, I always preface it and then it becomes bad. The town of Dudley, I know. So last year operating, so really where I'm going this is operating budget. Last year, the town of Charlton was able to work with you all and come up with something that we thought was fair.
Right.
And in fact, at the time, we could even say, you know what, we could even go on the higher end, which was great. Dudley, for whatever, I mean, for a variety of good reasons, said, no, we can't. And I know that they are now pursuing a larger operational override, inclusive of schools and potentially other departmental needs. The capital projects I can get because they're tangible. Those are easier to explain. My concern, for lack of a better word, is that if we start talking around enormous debt exclusions for potentially New Shepherd Hill, but if we couple that with potentially an override, and I'm not saying we did it right now, because all of our numbers say right now we don't need that. But depending upon, again, going back to what we spend our money on, that may come up. So I think it's going to be really important when we talk budgets that we maybe even start earlier than we normally do. If not this year, next year. Because at some point, we're going to hit that ceiling where we turn into not Dudley, but it's basically saying, you know what, we can't give you that top tier that you wanted anymore. And that's when that conversation is going to have. So I suppose my question is, if Dudley does pass their side of the house, at what point do you think that you're going to be asking for even more? And again, you have a bunch of constraints, and I get that, but I think we need to prep our side of the house to say, look, here's everything that's coming down from the schools, because it's been 50 years for Shepherd Hill. We're at the middle of the pack on overall funding, and if you look at our local, we're kind of at the bottom of it. So at some point, we as a community have to decide what that's going to mean, which again, not to be redundant, ties back to we're going to get this incremental revenue, and we as a community have to start talking about how we're going to spend it, because that's going to impact the fire station, the recreation center / senior center. It's going to impact Shepherd Hill, etc. So that was a very long-winded way of getting your thoughts around where do you see the operating budget going in the next 2 to 4 years?
So one of the things that we've done this year is to really think about what are our goals as a school committee and what's important to us. Shepherd Hill being one of them, communication, and really being transparent about our budget and working with both towns on our budget. We have someone from our MASC, which is the Mass Association of School Committees. We have them come into our next meeting to hold a budget workshop with us, so that we can really plan and be thoughtful about how we're spending our money. Because I think, going through last year, we realized, it is a big ask to both communities. You know, and I appreciate the town of Charlton and your willingness to do what you can do. And I can see, you know, I'm from Dudley and I can see where they are and their lack of their economic development, that they can't always put in the same amount. But we have that regional agreement, so whatever one does, the other one needs to do in proportion. So I think that we realize that, and we're not looking, you know, I work for another district, and I look at this district, and I'm always amazed at how much they do with how little we have. You know, and I think about our staff, you know, our office staff, you know, our administrative staff, they're bare minimum right now. You know, and I think that they've been working bare minimum for a long time. You know, some of the projections that we may see is, do we add another position in that area? But I think we're always looking first on how are we looking at our community needs. And I think that really, after this, you know, at least for me, being on budget finance, like, that was really put forth in our thoughts. So I think, you know, we always need to make sure we're doing the best we can for special ed. That's a mandate. We always need to make sure, you know, we want to have smaller class sizes if we can. We want to make sure that we have enough support for our students in their social and emotional needs. So I mean, I think it's a balancing game, and we really look to our community, we look to our staff to really help us plan for that in the future.
No, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think the only thing I'd ask especially is that, yes, really over the next few years at a minimum, is that we definitely keep up this type of positive interaction.
Absolutely.
Because if members feel, I suppose in either town, feel alienated or out of the loop or disrespected, it can make things very, very difficult for a lot of people to get stuff done. And I think that's really like the last thing that like really any of us want. So anyway,
Yes.
that's another way of saying, you know, just call Steve 11.
That's a good point.
I have a question.
Last question for the school, then we're gonna move on.
Off topic. Speaking about ratios, Charlton to Dudley children, what are those ratios
I'm
now?
going to ask for that one, because I'm sure that he has the exact formula.
Mr. Matthew? It's like 52 to 48?
Yeah, last year, the way the budget broke down, it was about 51 and a half or so to 48 and a half, give or take.
And how does the school choice, what's happening with that? When we have a choice school kids, how the process looks like? I just don't know.
I think
They
every spring we go through and decide how many school choice students we want to bring in. And, you know, our budget we've really kind of become dependent on our school choice funds. And it's not necessarily something you want to be.
When you
Yes,
say
go
school
for it.
choice, just so I know,
Yeah.
school choice fund, so this is something that we're getting subsidized, are we getting some kind of money
Yes,
from the state?
there is revenue. So for every school choice student, you get a flat rate of $5,000.
Oh, okay, that was.
And it helps offset our operating budget on an annual basis. We always have waiting lists at the middle school level, and we have open spots at the high school level. We set that number higher than we believe we're going to get, but we were always welcoming school choice. Now, students who have significant needs, there is a higher reimbursement rate for those particular students, but it's a flat rate of $5,000 per school choice student.
You know, and one of the things I will say, I don't know if you watched our last meeting or meeting before, is that, you know, we're looking for other ways. You know, we brought an enrollment in from out of district to kind of add to our revenue stream. So that helped in a way.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Yes.
Sorry, but I think also part of our budget talks has also been talking about the fact that we're looking at our resources of what we actually have at the table and what we can bring in, how to formulate it. So we're using our resources smarter.
Yes.
That we're also, with the PD this year, that was for UDL, that was grant funded. The CKLA changing over to something that, you know, had green reports on ed reports and curate for teaching reading for K through 4, that was grant funded. So we're really looking to expand as well in other avenues. It's, you know, so we're really conscious about the money that we receive from the towns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. If we're done with the school committee? Are there any other comments you gentlemen have, or?
Just the last comment, I want to continue
No, go right
to
ahead.
support Town Administrator Goldis. Working with him has been fantastic, and open lines of communication and everything, so I just want to make sure that I
Yeah,
continue to be on the record to say.
We kind of like him.
Yeah, I can see why, so I just want to compliment Mr. Goldis.
I give him a head rub, but I'm on TV.
But we appreciate the opportunity to always meet with you.
He is, he's very accommodating. Yeah, it's good to hear that, though. Anybody, or, so then we're moving on to PD?
You want to do schools? You want to knock them off?
No, I think we're, I think, oh,
Other schools.
Another school.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Kyle Burns, Superintendent of Bay Path. So
Oh,
I echo my
oh.
colleagues'
I'm sorry, sir.
sentiments about working with the town. We have a great relationship with the town of Charlton. We enjoy that. I'll just give you a few highlights. So we opened up our application process for incoming freshmen next year. So that just started the other day. This past year, we had 39 seats allocated to Charlton. We had 63 applicants that received acceptance letters, and of those, some choose not to attend. So we enrolled 50 students. We allocated 39, but we reallocate the seats that aren't used by one of the other 9 sending districts on that. So we got that up to 50 enrolled students. Our current total enrollment of Charlton students is 209 students. That's 50 in grade 9, 59 in grade 10, 48 in grade 11, and 52 in grade 12. This past year, class of 2022, we had 53 Charlton graduates. 20 of those students, or 38%, enrolled in higher education. That's 2 or 4 year schools. 30 of those students, or 57%, went right into the world of work. And I'm proud to say 3 students, or 5%, into the United States military. 2 in the Army and 1 in the Air Force. A number of different colleges, I have them all listed here, I won't put them all, from Assumption to Worcester Polytech, and all across the country, really. Several awards were given out. Chloe Jordan from Charlton went into the Air Force. She got the Patriotism Award for Disabled Americans. Isabella Tanacia went to Hood College. She's an Adams Scholar. Marissa DeJesus, WPI, she was our class valedictorian, and she received the Superintendent Scholarship. Lillian Dunkerton went to Johnson & Wales University, Adams Scholar, Bay Path Ed Foundation Scholarship, and Samuel Murillo went to UMass Lowell, Adams Scholar, Cornerstone Bank Law Enforcement Scholarship. Currently, we have 11 students from Charlton that are on co-op placement. That's where they can go out to work rather than come to shop and actually get paid and learn on the job. 7 Charlton employers have taken on one of our co-op students. That's Belly's Breakfast Barnyard, BES Building Energy Services Inc., Charlton Family Dental, MTD Micro Molding, P&P General Contractors, PRM Construction, and The Overlook. We do a number of community projects in the town. As you know, we just hosted the Charlton Old Home Days fireworks just a few weeks ago, so we're glad to have those back up at the school. We have a brand new digital sign, so I want to thank the town for allowing us to replace the one that was being blown over by the heavy winds. And we offered our emergency services in the town that they can tie into that anytime there's a reverse 911 type of call or public service announcement. They can put it in, we're flushing hydrants, or there's an Amber Alert or something like that. Also, Charlton PD and the local collaborative for law enforcement was up at the school this summer doing emergency training for, unfortunately, school shootings and stuff like that. They were up there 4 or 5 times, had full access to the school. We continue to work collaboratively with the Board of Health and the Water Sewer Department on our pump station that we cut over to, and we have a loss of pressure, so we continue to work. I appreciate all the efforts going into that. Some of the other projects this year on deck, we have a 3-door locking cabinet for the town hall by our cabinet making students. Last year for the Charlton Fire Department, we had 3 projects involving culinary arts and metal fabrication. Charlton PD, we had 4 projects involving automotive collision and graphics. Charlton PTO, we had 1 project with graphics. The Heritage School, we had 2 projects involving culinary arts, and also at the elementary school, our dental assistant students went down and did an education on how to take care of your teeth, and that was well received. They do a great job with costumes and a little song to help them remember, to brush and floss and all that. And just a reminder to the schools and the nonprofits that, you know, Bay Path can help with any of their culinary, woodworking, cabinet making, graphics, or metal fabrication needs. We're always willing to go out into the public on those. Our restaurant is open for both eat-in and takeout. It's a scaled-down curbside, which went gangbusters over the last 2 years with, but keeping pace with that, we have to scale it back. So just check our website for times of pickup on curbside and the openings for the restaurant on that. We don't just operate during the day, we operate at night, and the Bay Path Adult Evening School has 105 course offerings for just this fall semester. I've got a list and I got brochures if anybody wants those, or to leave them at the senior center. Over a 10-year time period, Charlton has sent us 2,310 students in our evening program. And just this fall, we have over 107 Charlton residents enrolled in those courses. Bay Path Practical Nursing Program, currently have 1 Charlton resident enrolled in the program, and last year we had 2. They do a blood pressure clinic at the Charlton Senior Center. It's the last Wednesday of each month from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And practical nurses perform clinicals at the Overlook and clinical observations at the Wound Clinic in Charlton. And they participated in the Charlton Cultural Council. They're actually, Brethlin Bolendrina, Dr. Bolendrina, had a artwork submitted in that, and it was prominently displayed in the local newspaper as well. A couple projects we're looking at. We want to resurrect the solar farm proposal. The biggest need for facilities would be our athletic facilities. They don't drain, they get a lot of use, and the kids are usually playing in puddles and in mud. So resurrection, the solar farm proposal would help pay to redo all our fields up there. So we're looking at bringing that back online. But I think a lot of you are familiar with the proposal that went through, and there was a change in solar farms and municipalities and so forth. And we look to resolve our issue with the pump station. That's it. Thank you.
Cool. Wow, thank you. You know, and thank you so much for allowing Old Home Day to use your facility.
Oh, absolutely.
For the fireworks.
Yeah.
I hope we didn't mess the place up too bad and you'll allow us back next year.
Absolutely, no.
I wouldn't expect that, but
Yeah.
it really worked out well. I think everybody.
Are we done with the schools? I just want to say before we gonna move on from the schools that there are things that not many people know. We, on the side of all of you guys do, we have the Charlton Dudley Educational Foundation. That is an awesome board. I'm proud member of it. Steve is a participant, full board member. He comes to every meeting. The way the schools are helping us to raise the money to give back, it goes beyond. I just don't know how much to thank you. We were able to give $35,000 to the schools for all the grants that we couldn't do, so thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, very good. So we're done with the schools. Now we're moving on to PD.
Sure. Handout. A lot of pros, mostly in the maintenance side.
Do you want to come up in the?
Well, I wasn't going, nobody
in the
else.
camera part, or-
You want to stand right in the middle?
Yeah.
We did a lot of upgrades to the buildings. We finished the dispatching project, which was bringing up the dispatch center up to standard. I appreciate Andrew's help on that. We tied in the water. I appreciate Andrew and Pete on that. That does, running water, which we're appreciative of. The roof is a project we're working on. I believe there's bids out there, but that's something, the building's 30 years old, so it's just time to replace the roof. But we're in the process of getting that done. Those are my positives, my doom and glooms. The town voted to get us out of civil service. The state has not let us get out of civil service. Civil service police departments won't let me take their people because they're shotting people too. So we can't hire. So we're sort of in a quandary. I've had a recent retirement. I have 2 openings, so that brings me up to 3. I'm hoping as the state comes to their senses and releases us, let my people go type thing, we'll be able to fill those positions. My biggest problem right now is dispatch. I've got 5 full-time dispatchers. I've got 1 going out on maternity. I have 1 that's got doing both shoulders, rotator cuff back to back, so he's 10 weeks per shoulder. And I have a dispatcher that's contemplating going to the state police in January. I really could use a 6th dispatcher because I have the ability to tell those people they can't go home. I can't do that to per diem people and part-time people. Their full-time jobs take precedence over their lives. So I really could use a 6th person. But guess what? I know there's a lot of praise for Andrew. Guess what Andrew cut from me? My 6th dispatcher. So I'm hoping that we can probably get that back on board for those reasons. This town has a history of, we're gonna spend $90,000 in overtime when the position only costs $60,000 to fill. That's what's gonna happen. I hope that we spend our money wisely. There's my earlier comment about drunken sailors, but that's all I have.
No, Chief, I think it's an interesting quandary you're in, because a lot of people still consider Charlton what it was 25 years ago. And the simple reality is we're not. And if you look at what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be completely different.
We're probably the only community that doesn't have 2 dispatchers going on a regular basis. Now, they either have 2 in the building or they're regional.
Right.
So unless the town wants to make the next step to either bring on some more dispatchers or they want to go regional, but I'm happy with either direction.
Right.
Whatever makes the town happy, but that's how you get staff.
I mean, I think we really need to look at you guys as well as the fire department. And
Don't look at the fire.
I was just saying. But
Is there anybody here from fire department? Oh, there is.
really, when we start thinking about forecasting, not only residential growth, but commercial growth. I mean, take a look at it, at a town like Millbury. Again, relatively same population size, but during the day, especially around holiday season, you get all that traffic going up to the mall. We have to take that into consideration when Amazon and other warehouses and like everything else get built. It's not just the residents, and that, cow that you might see running around a Putnam Road. I mean, I see like a lot of what you guys do, and
So we run quality assurance to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to when we get an emergency 911 call. We find that our grade goes up tremendously when there's 2 people on, because they're not answering the phone, trying to get people on the phone. There's an accident.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a cell phone. Now they're trying to find out, are you a witness? Did you come across it? Because you might need information if they're a witness that you don't need if they're just reporting it. We've got that. But everybody calls at once. They get overwhelmed. It's really the trend. Everybody has 2. So I'll take the hit overnights. I get it. Sometimes it's crickets. One person can usually handle it. But during the busier hours, like say 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., I think everybody else has got 2 people. We're really falling behind. We're running it like we did 20 years ago.
exactly. And I suppose this is my cheap plug for your department. The reality is that we're not the like cover in Ives atmosphere from 50, 60 years ago. That we really need to start taking public safety seriously. And I believe your staffing levels are still below what the FBI recommends.
They are.
And that's one of the things, again, we have to have those conversations. So when we talk about prioritization, it's probably not a surprise where I'm coming from, that, public safety is going to be prioritized probably above everything.
There's
So
also a
that's
component
conversation.
of dispatching called emergency medical dispatch, where they're supposed to do more than just answer the phone and hang up. They're supposed to give instructions, or do this, get out of the house, there's a fire, whatever they give instructions further than just thank you and hang up. We're not meeting that threshold when all these activities are going on, all these calls are coming in. It's hard, you don't want your loved one having a heart attack and then having to answer the phone because 911 is ringing right next to it, and there's nobody to take care of your loved one.
Can we have Dozer learn to answer the phone?
Believe me, if I could get rid of Dozer's hand or just
Yeah, I was
keep
gonna say,
Dozer,
that's
I'd be
what-
happy.
As far, Dozer is like
He's the saint in my department. 0 issues with him.
Oh, and by the way, speaking of that, I know Steve and I have talked about this a lot. There's a misconception in town that we do not fund Dozer stuff. The reality is, we do. If you see fundraising, if you see whatever, that's just to augment, it's also additional PR, and it's to get extra stuff.
Yeah, we
Dozer
came
is
into the
considered
fiscal
part of
year
the-
without having been budgeted for the dog. So the very first year we got the dog, we were very reliant on grants.
Yeah.
But then we put a line item in, the dog is well-fed, well taken care of, he's probably on my diet. The dog's fine. I don't want anybody thinking that the dog isn't eating, or not going to the vet. That's not the case. Now, we stay active with the fundraising because there may be a comfort dog down the road, there may be some other things that we're looking at, but it just keeps the dog in the community and people seeing the dog and supporting it. A lot of people, we get a lot of calls, how do we support the dog? They don't want to support me.
Yeah, I was going to throw that out there.
That's the t-shirts and the sweatshirts and things you'll see on Facebook. It's to help people. They want that money to specifically go to the dog.
I can probably speak for part of the board at least, that we have, the selectmen have a little bit of dozer envy. If we vote to put a new roof on the school for $4 million, we get 45 likes. Dozer catches a DUI suspect and gets 455 likes.
He's my most popular.
We know who Dozer is, don't, that's my point, don't we get it.
And he's never asked for a raise.
You never know.
Next thing.
Maybe.
But he does bark.
You know, and Dan, and thank you for, I mean, social media is a big thing now, and everybody's always on it, but your posts that you guys, that the PD is constantly putting up is letting people aware, making people aware of how the town is changing, just to Bill's point. It's not like it was 25 years ago, and we need to adapt and think ahead to meet those needs.
Steve, I think Diane had a question.
Well, I just wanted to say something, you know, having been on recreation, having to call the department many times and many more times frequently, the response is amazing, tremendous, the support, I can't even say enough. Yes, they need another dispatcher, but I can't tell you how much help they've been and how supportive they are, and follow-up as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Can I
Yes,
advise
go right
something?
ahead.
I just want to thank you for the most recent incident that happened with the, I don't know, same place or the semi-same place that happened. And I think this is a really good time to say Code Red, if we're on TV, is a place that people could get notifications about that, because that was in my neighborhood of this part of town. And I think that people didn't know about it if they weren't on Code Red to get the messages. So I think that that's a really important thing to bring up at this meeting.
I appreciate that you were glad that we did it. I get just as many complaints.
I'm sure you do.
Funny part about COVID. I want the information. Why'd you call it that out? Well, that's when it was ongoing. That's when it was an issue, you know, I mean, so.
But I think that that's, if you want to be informed in this town, it's a really important way to get
You
it.
can opt out if you don't want to be.
Thank you.
No, Jamie, good point.
Okay, so moving on to, who's next? Kathleen? Old Home Day Committee.
Actually, I have 4 committees. Does that mean that I get 20 minutes?
No, I mean, that means
You're not
you
on the
get,
selectmen anymore.
that means you get 4, 1 for each committee. That's.
Okay, I'll be fast. So the Keep Charlton Beautiful Committee, which used to be the Recycling Committee, but we changed it to a more beautiful name. This is from Debbie Marquis. She's the chair, and she was sick this evening, so she couldn't come, but she wrote this. We finished our last year in the Small Scale Initiatives Grant from the state in the spring of this year because it will no longer be available to municipalities. The DEP invites towns and cities to join the Recycling Dividends Program to spark more recycling efforts and reward those achieved with a point money value. We got off to a slow start as we worked to understand the new program and what can be done in Charlton, which does not have curbside pickup yet. My own plug. We were able to get 3 points, which was about $700, which has not come from the state yet. We intend to make a more aggressive effort to get more points this coming year. The second issue is the Board of Health has continued to fund vouchers for Household Hazardous Waste Day 4 times a year at Casellas in Southbridge, and we hope you guys see that that continues. But basically, if you want to bring hazardous waste to Southbridge at Casellas, you will have to pay for it unless you can go to the Board of Health and get a voucher for free. And then you can bring your hazardous waste, not a full cup, but half a cup. So we help publicize it, and one member works at the event to hand out more vouchers to those who haven't gotten one. So if you show up without a voucher, Debbie will be there to give you one. They have been a moderate success and are appreciated by those who get one at Town Hall at the event. And the third thing is our Keep Charlton Beautiful Committee is a member of Keep Massachusetts Beautiful. And along with recycling goals, we work on anti-littering and roadside beautification. Our members picked up litter for Earth Day and funded pickers and vests for volunteers. Our attempt to get a town bylaw on littering did not succeed, but we will keep brainstorming ideas. We also feel the town can do more to fund citizen initiatives in these areas. And I know one of our members is gonna battle you all down for more, to get the islands cleaned up. We do meet the second Tuesday of every month at the library at 5 o'clock for 1 hour. And it really does stay at 1 hour. So that's Keep Charlton Beautiful. I just wanted to quickly say about Chip In. Chip In is our food pantry, which is here in the town hall. And I'm on that board, and we give out food to people that need it only once a month. It's the third Saturday of every month. And if you sign up ahead of time, you can come and get a fairly big box of food, which will probably get you through the week and allow you to pay your electric bill. So it's something. And we also gather that food from the Worcester County Food Bank the Wednesday prior to that, and we really could use your help tomorrow at 3 o'clock to unload the van. We have to, it's good muscle building activity. We basically, we have to unload all this food, carry it up quite a few steps and into Chip In.
Quite a few steps. There's steep.
Steve's done it. Quite a few steps, yeah. So we're doing that tomorrow at 3 o'clock when the van comes in. And it's once a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay if I speak, Steve?
What's that?
I was just asking if it was okay if I asked her a question a little bit.
No, I have a question too, go right ahead.
Can you utilize National Honor Society students?
Yeah, we
and
have.
Possibly even from the middle school? They have a meeting tomorrow at
Yeah,
middle
we do.
school.
Yeah, we do utilize them as much as possible. They've been very helpful in the past.
And so how would students get in touch with you? Can we pass that along to our principals about the best way that they can reach out and say they want help?
Well, I coordinate the volunteers, so they can certainly email
you.
me
Okay.
or call me, text me,
That
whatever works
was-
for them.
That actually goes home with my question as well. I was texted earlier today that there were some kids from Shepherd Hill, the Honor Society, that were wondering who to contact.
Okay.
And they've tried to contact, but they didn't
Well-
get return emails, so
Yeah.
you should be the person
Well,
that
I do coordinate the volunteers. Darlene and Ray, who really run the place,
Yeah.
especially Darlene, have both been very sick.
Oh, yeah, no.
And they're both, I think they're both still hospitalized right now. I'm not sure. I think Darlene's getting out today. But they're indomitable people. But sometimes it may be a lot easier to get hold of me, and I can basically tell them when to come. So,
Do you mind if I ask you what your email address is?
kwalker4@mac.com. And it's all over the internet on the town webpage.
At Match.com?
M-A-C.
No.
I'm an Apple person.
Oh, Mac.com.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's very different.
Sorry. All right, anyway.
Could I just make one comment? One thing you need to be cognizant is, a lot of people work, and a 3 PM asking for people to come out is not going to work. Is there a way to think about having something that's later in the evening when people aren't working? Because you're going to get retired people.
They've tried that.
Worcester County Food Bank tells us when we can pick up the food.
Yeah,
And
it's on their clock.
We really don't have much of a choice. So, but I appreciate what you're saying. Makes sense. So.
Yeah, and 3 o'clock is tough on the kids too, because they're getting out of school about 10 of 2, you know what I'm saying, so it's.
They could come at 2:45.
Yeah, well, they can even. I can deliver them if I have to.
We really don't have a lot of leeway with that, unfortunately. We could leave the food in the van, so that night, that's something that we probably could do, but, I don't know, that'd be up to down there. So, anyway, so that's Chip In.
It definitely requires some heavy lifting. It
Well,
does.
I just turned 80, and I do it. It's
All
really
right.
good for me.
Yeah, but Kathleen, you're in shape. I mean, don't judge the rest of us. Come on.
No,
It really
it's a
is.
van,
It
yeah,
really is good.
they're
It's
not
good.
little boxes, you know.
You don't have to
these are-
take the
yeah.
big loads, you know, you can save those, but you can, it's good for you. So,
So is that your fourth committee, or are you?
No,
That's
that's
second.
Second? All right, I'm gonna have to put you on a timer now. 'cause per
Okay,
your-
the other one, this one's very short. The Charlton Democratic Committee is reorganizing on September 27th at 7:15 at the library. That's it. Because it's political. Old Home Day is the last one. And we had a wonderful and terrible Old Home Day this year. Wonderful because everybody is so great. And we had a lot of fun and laughter. I got completely soaking wet trying to borrow a tent from somebody and bring it over to somebody else. And I found myself feeling like I was 8 years old and a kid again, just laughing in the rain and working hard and just having fun and making people happy. So it was really great. We're having our next meeting on January 25th, thanks to Jerry. And we'll be, the major thing we're gonna decide is whether we should have a rain date. I'm kind of bummed out by the fact that we couldn't have the whole one day. So we're probably trying to decide that, think about it. I will tell you that it costs about $20,000 to put on Old Home Day, and half of that is for the fireworks, thanks to Bay Path. That was wonderful this year, wonderful. And so we pull in about 13,000 in donations from big companies around Charlton. So anything else that, we can, the vendors all pay like $25, but it's, we really appreciate the money that the town puts in. So that helps a lot. So it's not cheap, but people have been stepping up to the plate. And we had about 20 volunteers this year, and 3 of them, on top of that, we had 3 selectmen coming to most of our meetings, which we have never had before. And they were such a great help, and they had so many ideas. And you just have to say you have a great board of selectmen who does, Charlton does. So I gotta stop myself here. Anyway, that's the end of it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Kathleen?
Yeah.
There was talk and rumors, I would say, about having the parade on a Sunday instead of Memorial Day, so if we had a rain date, it would go right up with 2 days that people can make that.
Yeah, we're gonna decide that in January. We'd probably think about having Old Home Day on Sunday and then a rain date on Monday. But there's churches, there's a lot of stuff that has to come.
We had a meeting just before this,
Yeah.
and we put that out to the group to mull over. And then in January, we'll start 2023, and that'd be one of the things we get into.
You have to find out the process too, because there are other things that might say you can't do that,
Yeah.
But it'd be a good thing in my, say that,
Yeah.
So, that's all I'm gonna say about it.
All I want to say about it is I like rain. But anyway, good. But, so Kathleen, then you're done?
Yes, that's all 4.
So now we're
There's a
moving-
few more committees that I haven't mentioned, but somebody.
You were the one, you emailed me last night and told me to keep on time. You reminded me. It was your email that, I wouldn't even have really thought of that or been so strict if it wasn't for your email, so I thank you for that. So, moving on. Peter Boria and the Water Sewer Commission.
Charlie, still following Chaplain?
You better have some good stuff.
All right. Pete Boria, I'm the Charlton Water and Sewer Superintendent. As far as water and sewer daily operations go, I feel like things are going fairly well. I guess my main reason for saying that is customer complaints are few and far between, and we're not in the headlines of the paper every other day. So I mean, day to day, things are going well. We're continuing to operate and do the best we can with what we have. On the water side of things, we're still looking for our own in-town water supply. We received another $200,000 grant from Mass DEP to continue that search this year. I believe this might be the 5th year in a row that we've gotten that funding, so we're continuing that process. gonna be drilling at least 3 test wells throughout the community to try and find our own in-town source. So hopefully that will come to fruition and we'll be able to kind of get that done. We're also working on closing out the school loop water line extension. As Mr. Brenner said, there are some operational issues that we're working with ExxonMobil and Kleinfelder to kind of resolve. I'm gonna kind of chalk that up as growing pains. Our system before the extension wasn't really 100%. There was operational issues with it. And since we've done this extension, it's maybe exacerbated those a little bit. So I'm confident that with Kleinfelder working with their engineers and ExxonMobil, that they'll come to us with a resolution that will solve the water pressure issues. And I believe Kleinfelder and ExxonMobil are working with Bay Path separately to come up with a temporary solution until they find that permanent solution. So again, it's not ideal, but I believe that we will be able to work through the problem and come up with a solution that will be beneficial to us and everyone else. On the sewer side of things, we have completed a study that recommends some improvements for the sewer treatment plant. That study was funded by the ARPA funds, so I'd like to thank the board and the town for sharing those funds with us to do that study. Coming out of that study, we're actually going into a design phase to design a portion, or say phase 1 of those improvements to our headworks building, which is original to the treatment plant back in the early 1990s. So that's the one part of the treatment plant that has not been renovated or changed since its original build. And that's where all the initial flow goes through and our initial treatment takes place. So it'll be definitely beneficial for us to get that improvement going. And again, that design is going to be funded from ARPA funds as well. So we really appreciate that, and it's going to get us a great head start to try and get that upgrades going. And again, these improvements we feel are definitely important to us, because that will give us the ability to be able to say yes to new growth, whether it's residential connections or whether it's new commercial growth on Route 20 that we will probably end up seeing in the next 3 to 5 years after Amazon's done. So we want to be able to say yes, and we don't want to be the stumbling block that has the commercial growth that residents want to see. We don't want to have to say no to that. So again, I think we have some important projects going. We're working hard to try and get them done, and things are going fairly well.
Pete, where are you at capacity right now for the plant?
Our daily flow is about 50%, but our loading is at 100.
All right.
So if you look, say the plant was designed to take 450,000 gallons per day, but it's also designed to treat so many pounds of constituents per day. We're at 100% of our loading.
Okay, so the upgrade is really needed.
The upgrade is definitely needed. Yes. And the upgrade that that the study has proposed will be able to allow us to increase our loading by 50%. So
good.
It'll definitely free up quite a bit of capacity, or free up our ability to treat additional capacity comfortably.
Good.
But if it were a supermarket or an apartment building, that wouldn't add. You'd still have, that would fall within that 50% capacity. You wouldn't have any major.
The supermarket,
issues. Well, on the
depends
sewer
how
side.
much. It depends how much they process. It depends how much waste we get.
Yeah.
As far as the farming complex, that's just kind of regular residential household waste. That's not as concerning. It's more the process waste that we're seeing from the MTAs for the strengthening ammonia, or Treehouse with their high BOD, or something else that might come in, similar to a restaurant or a grocery store that prepares a lot of food, and a lot of their wasted foods might go down a garbage disposal, and we'll get it that way. That's what kind of gives us some issues with treatment.
Well, good.
Pete,
looks like we're heading the right. Go ahead.
Sorry, Pete, real quick. First of all, you guys do a really a great job over there, especially knowing that it's kind of a no one goes, hey, I'm gonna go sit on water sewer. I mean, that's not like something that somebody says, but you and the team would do a really nice job keeping all that up. What is your 30-second elevator speech? Because we see it on social media all the time. We're asked all the time. I'm sure you're bored and you were asked all the time. How much of Route 20, for the cameras at home, how much of Route 20 actually has active water and sewer today?
40%.
Okay. So for those that don't know, it's 40%. So a decent amount But because I know we always get those conversations around, oh yes, well, there's water sewer here, there's water sewer there. It's like, no, it's only around 40%. So that's something, again, when we think around infrastructure improvements for you and your team.
But the infrastructure's there on the other 40% going the other direction. It's just we need enough usage to justify activating that infrastructure.
And that was and that was tested when?
The testing isn't the problem.
Yeah.
It's the fact that without having enough draw on the water line, that water goes stagnant because it's coming from Southbridge. So by the time it gets to us, it's already X days old.
Yeah.
And because it's a large line, it'll be 2X by the time it gets to the end of Route 20. And there's no way that water will be able to stay potable.
Right. So there are some continued challenges for you to try to make all this happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, they're growing pains.
Exactly.
They're just issues that, like, when someone wants to make it happen bad enough, it'll happen.
If you notice, there's like a theme to all my questions around the road. So.
But to Bill's question, so that to clarify for the people at home, the infrastructure for water is there all the way to Sturbridge. We just haven't activated it
No,
because
to Sturbridge is active. It's the water line easterly to Oxford. There's water from North Side Road all the way to Glenmere that's currently sitting inactive. And even though there's a couple of restaurants down there, that's still not really enough of a draw to activate that, 3/4 of a mile, 12-inch line, unfortunately.
Do we have sewer lines down there too? I mean, I really don't know. No, the answer is no. Right?
Sewer only goes to North Main Street.
Gotcha.
And west.
Yeah.
in west.
Thanks, Pete.
To in west.
Sewer goes to 5 East. Goes to the Mass Pike 5 East. But with the proposed project at 241 Sturbridge Road, down by the Sturbridge line, at the second warehouse, it would be extended to there by them.
By them.
Yes.
And
that's part of their project.
Thanks, Pete.
Peter, I just want to say thank you so much. I always wait to hear from you because you're so knowledgeable. I just think that this is great. You're always ready, and you always go extra mile. It just shows the enthusiasm and a positive outlook, and I really love it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah. Is there anything else? Any questions for Peter?
No, 5 minutes, Kathleen.
Moving around, who do we, we have the, of course.
My name is Joe Hazel. I'm chairman of the Government Study Committee.
The Government
Jerry
Study
Goldman,
Committee.
Gene Costello, Jim Nee, Adam Kelly. We're looking at reviewing the 2016 white paper that was done very well by the committee that was there. Gene was on that committee. I can't see anybody else, but we're just here to learn. We're here to get your ideas and comments and find out what's going on. And we're very interested in looking at how things are running. Are they running smoothly, efficiently, both within departments and with other departments, interdepartmental, as well as financially? So we meet on the third Tuesday of the month, 6 o'clock, except for October. We're going to meet on the October 4th at 6 o'clock upstairs. But if you'd like to come to us, we're going to try to get around and talk to everybody. But if you'd like to come to us with any issues or anything that we need for the report, feel free to come in. It's best to contact Mary Devlin at the Selectman's office so she can schedule it. But we're hearing a lot of good things tonight, and I'm happy to say that. Guys, you have anything you want to add?
We have a very simple budget.
Yes. Don't cost the town any money.
Kathleen, I'll give you a moment.
Yeah. So I was on that first committee,
That's what you were there.
and I remember what the catalyst for that was, which we will not talk about.
Mhm.
But what's the catalyst for what started this second committee?
Well, the selectmen finally, or Andrew finally found it, the report, and they
Okay.
wanted to find out where it's gone, what's happened to the recommendations.
Oh,
and
okay,
things.
all right,
And
that
so
makes sense.
that's what we're trying to do.
Right.
And any other further recommendations we can make that will help the town.
Right, okay.
and I'm gonna whack a hornet's nest on this one just because I like to.
You know the talk, Bill, I know that.
No idea. So,
5 minutes.
No, it's a bit less than 30, I promise. Here's the question I really have, and it could be a very easy answer, and obviously not for tonight, but does our form of government still work? And I'll be completely serious when I say that, because when people call the selectman's office, for example, and I'm not throwing any other department under the bus, like if they have a planning problem, like or something, I'm like, well, that's the planning board, and the town planner reports into the planning board, or around the town clerk. We elect ours as opposed to appoint. And I'm not saying good or bad either way, but from a macrocosmic view, I would actually love to see in your final study to say, you know what, I wouldn't change a thing around structure, keep it exactly as it is, or potentially go, do we need a town charter? So again, I know that's a whack in the hornet's nest, but I like to think big on these things, so.
As far as government works, right now, I think it works because we have good people doing things and cooperating. And I've seen more cooperation, I've heard about more cooperation between departments tonight than I can remember, because I've been around a few years. And, but we're going to look at that. And we want to make government work efficiently and for the good of the people. So that's where we're headed.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
No, and thank you for that. And if I could add to that, it's just, even tonight, it's great to have everybody together. Nobody's raising their voice.
Yet.
Nobody did this. Maybe I should stop.
See, if I could say something, if you do have a complaint in anything, we're the group to go to.
Yeah, not us. We're gonna bury that one. No, but seriously, but a little bit of humor, and maybe sometimes I might carry it a little too far, but it takes a little bit of the pressure out of the room, and everybody gets along a little better, and that's just kind of my approach.
No, I don't have the email address with me. I will get that out.
Gene, if you send it to me, I'll post it to my page too.
All right. In the first group of the government study, we did look at all those things, and it is good to get input from each board. We made a point of going to each board, each department in the building, and those that aren't in the building, and try to get their input, their honest input. It was helpful. I think we did what we set out to do at that time. Of course, things have changed a lot since then. There wasn't any great need for any big changes. But where did you find the report? Was it Barry?
I think I was handed in my first
You had it in your life.
But I mean, when you're talking about a 6-year-old report, and if everything's really been implemented or at least considered for implementation, well, it's time to evaluate whether or not those implementations actually made any difference. And so it's kind of like a reflection back to say, okay, we did this, did it do anything, or do we have to take it a step further?
Let's see, I guess that's kind of where we are now. We're just taking a look at what the report said and then kind of where the government stands today, and just to see what was done, what wasn't done, and trying to figure out why things weren't done that were recommended previously. So I think we're just taking a look at that and the SWOT analysis as well.
The culture, town hall culture has changed significantly in, 10 years? If you look at, back then to now, it's totally different. The town hall, it's a different place, absolutely.
And at the same time, when we're looking at this thing, there's nothing we're trying to do, there's nothing we're not trying to do. We're trying to be wide open, look at everything, and then recommend what would seem to be an improvement for everything in town. But that's way in the future right now. We're just getting started on it, so.
Jerry, how many people on your committee? All of you?
This is it. Yeah.
Oh, this is great. All of you, yeah, good.
Oh, that's smart.
I would like to bring in something that I'm asked almost every week, is becoming of the senior center that was up on Dresser Hill, and is there going to be any action on it? Have we got any plans for it?
We have, we formed, the selectmen had formed a committee for a new senior center. the committee is formed. I don't know if they've met yet.
We've been trying to coordinate a kickoff, but
The kickoff meeting
Yeah.
coming up.
It's a senior center, community center amalgamation to basically say, how can we kill a bunch of birds with one stone if possible? But really to develop a plan, exactly what you're saying, to
You need
say.
a plan.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You gotta have something.
Yep.
along there.
It's,
But that's in motion.
it could be, it's tied in with the activity center. Do we put a senior center there?
Well,
Since
this
it's-
is what I heard, and, you know, I just don't wanna say, well, 3 years from now, saying the same thing, what about senior center? You know?
Well, yeah, I know, but there are certain needs. I mean, a year and a half from now, fire station 2 is gonna collapse, and we've got $1 million worth of stuff, at least with the equipment in there.
Well, I'm also gonna throw something else at you, that, as you see, we had a ramp and stairs, and the handicapped people have a lot of trouble with it. If you can't get a building right away, I suggest we have 2 toilets put in here for the handicapped.
Mike, didn't we appoint you to the committee, or am I making that up? Yeah, yeah. Because I think once it gets, like to Andrew's point of, once you can get those dates together to start meeting, honestly, I would just start, developing a plan around all that, both short-term, medium, long-term needs, or long-term, I hate to say multi-generational plan, but that might be something to take a look at as well.
Yeah, the answer was never no. It's just, it's
I know
priority,
it's never no,
it's needs versus wants and.
But there was so much hope when we seen that building up there, and we said, I know it's expensive, but that's there,
Yeah, I don't know if I really want to rehash that. I think the concern at the town meeting that night was there were more unknowns than knowns. What's the condition of the building? What would it cost to remodel? We didn't have any of those answers. It just wasn't. And it wasn't in the budget. We would have had to cut operational costs to do that. It was the timing of it. Yes,
But the reason why.
may
I'm
or may
saying
not be a
that-
great opportunity, but we
The reason why I'm
can't.
saying that is because as all you people are looking at, this is our hall, and we can probably put 80 people into it with tables and chairs. And it gets difficult in our programs because we're doing line dancing and we're doing exercises, and we got a small room back there that we utilize. We're putting the exercise across the street in the library for the people that want to do it. And we're grateful for that we're getting that. But that isn't a senior center. Senior is to keep them together, and have them enjoy things. I celebrate it every time I see someone coming in and say, I'm coming back, this is great, Because, we try to work very hard in Lane.
Oh, no, there's no doubt. No, it's not a question how hard you people work to keep it up and going. That's not even a question. It's just, it's a little more priority list and what we
Something we
need.
gotta look forward to.
Yep, yep.
It's so much part of the town.
When is the new director starting? The new director,
So it's starting on 24th.
24th of this month?
of this month.
You must even know, we have fire over there too.
Fire?
Oh, no, we don't have fire, sorry.
Yeah,
You got that, my bad.
we do fire.
Yeah, my bad.
Did you have a question?
See, I tried to be helpful for once, that's what happens.
You had a question? I thought she had a question.
I'll talk to you later.
Oh.
Is there anybody else that I may have missed that might have a comment, or any of the board?
Josh.
Pete Lance at Board of Health. I just want to reiterate what Kathleen said. There is a hazardous waste day this Saturday. The Board of Health does have vouchers available. And also, we got a fresh shipment of COVID tests in, so there's plenty available. So if anybody wants them, I think they're even stacked in Andrew's office at this point. I know we've been helping out the schools, but we do have plenty in the Board of Health to hand out for the residents to complete COVID tests at home.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you for what you're giving to the school.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Oh, go right ahead. I'm
For the
sorry.
Board of
I couldn't
Assessors,
see you back there.
that's all right. Just an update, we're in a certification year with the Department of Revenue, so we've been very busy leading up to that. We still are a little bit behind on visiting houses. They've recommended about 1,500 that need to be visited in the next 3 years, so we will be working on that. They want not only the residential, but the commercial, the industrial, the exempts, and everything to be also measured. Sales are still high, but stabilizing. Our LA3, we had about 435 transfers in the past year. Not all those are valid, a lot of those were family and so forth. So we're in the process of certification. The new growth looks good. Hopefully, we'll be able to get those numbers in the next month and we'll be able to look at a positive tax rate. If anyone ever has any questions, my door is always open. Please feel free to come in. If you want to understand your tax bill more, understand what's happening in the market, we're always happy to answer questions.
They actually made a really nice video that was out on your site at one point, around basically how we take taxes. I think Andrew worked on it with your team.
Yeah.
Just remember, because we'll be talking about that a lot over the next years. As your valuations go up, more than likely your tax rate goes down. So don't look at one or the other. You have to look at both to figure out what that means. Because like Provincetown, I think, or Martha's Vineyard has a tax rate of like $4 or $5 per 100,000. But when your house is worth $5 to $10 million, it all compensates. So don't always yell at us around like tax bills. Don't forget, town meeting is the one that actually makes things.
There is an interactive map that just came out, and I posted one in the hallway upstairs that does show where we fall as far as average tax bill, because that's what you're really saying, is you have to look at both components. Just because the tax rate's low, if the values are high, they might still have. The average tax bill across the state is a little over $6,000. I think it's $6,279 or somewhere in there, where we're more around $4,500. So we are on the lower side of average for the whole state. But you have to weigh both factors in. We have a lot happening, a lot that's going to be happening in the next few years, as was discussed well tonight, and what we decide to spend our money on. That isn't what my department decides. We're just looking at market value.
I was gonna say, said another way, don't yell at the assessor's office. They're just doing their job.
Moving, no, I gave him a shot.
Josh,
He said he's good. Fire department's got all their needs filled. No, go right ahead.
Jeff Sorrell, IT Director for Town of Charlton. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of projects. You'll have no idea what I'm talking about anyway, core switches, access points. But the main reason I want to come here is yearly my budget is $25,000 a year for hardware, computer hardware. That's town-wide, every building, all the networking that we have in town. So basically where I get money from and funding for upgrades in town are from the town article that happened at town meeting. So I just wanted to let you know what I'm looking for this year at town meeting for my article. I'm putting in for a $100,000 article, and 20 to 25 of that is going towards PD for booking room and interview room upgrades, and half of the other 75 that's left is going towards town-wide desktop system upgrades. We currently have 90 systems that will not upgrade to Windows 11. I have 2 years to get it done. I'm going to try to do 45 this year, calendar year 23, and 45 for a calendar year 24. This way we'll be compliant in 25 when we have to go to Windows 11, and we don't have to have any security issues. So that's basically why I'm here. Please vote for my article. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have Dan on, not you, but didn't the police department actually, weren't you guys on like Windows XP or Windows 98 for like the
That was part of the dispatch.
We took care of that this year, yeah. We did the dispatch station upgrades, radio system upgrades, camera upgrades, core switch upgrades, access controls for the building, wireless access points throughout town-wide.
So when you talk around that 37.5 to 75, clearly that's needed, because if we're running software that was developed, I don't know, in the 20th century, yeah, I think we might.
Well, our desktops, I went around to every building and I inventoried them all. We had 90 that failed the test to upgrade to Windows 11, so they have to get replaced. I can't do 90 in 1 year. Doing upgrades is one thing, but they need to be replaced, so they have to be built from scratch. When we went from Windows 7 to Windows 10, all those computers were Windows 7, and we could spend 70, 80 bucks, that was it, just to upgrade them to run Windows 10. They won't take Windows 11 at all. So at an average of about, today's cost, who knows what it is tomorrow, about $850 per computer.
But again, that's a need versus, that's a need versus a want. Again,
Yeah.
Have options.
So that's basically the plan. This year's town article, finish PD, that's the last thing I have to do there, really. Get half the desktops done for calendar year '23, and the rest will be towards maintenance. Again, I have that $25,000 a year for hardware. That's really maintenance and break fix. If I get a disk array that goes down to PD that has that's running our cameras, well, there goes 11 grand. So you can see the hardware budget goes quick, and the rest of the article goes towards other minor upgrades and just in cases. But the desktops do need to repair, and it's gonna be about 90 grand for that. Over 2 years, I'm gonna try to budget it out because I can't do it all at once anyway.
So you're thinking 100 grand for 2 years?
No, the reason I went from 75 to 100 this year is to finish PD for the booking room and interview room. So next year it should be 75.
To get half of them done, then the 75 the following.
Right, and I'm gonna do 45,000 this year. Next year, calendar year, 45,000, 45 computers, and 45 computers the year after that, because it's just gonna be out straight. It takes a couple of days to do one, because they're not upgraded, they're built from scratch, so all the software has to go on it, all the configuration, all the testing, and then you get a call the next day, oh, we forgot this, and back up all the data, make sure all the map drives are there. It's a process. So that's why I want to come in.
Yeah, any other questions?
That's what my article is for this year.
Jeff does a great job. It's so much easier having an IT person than it was me. Because I'm not an IT person, but somehow I was the IT person.
Yeah. Anybody in this room that's an IT person, raise your hand, right?
Just last reminder, October 24th, town meeting. Please be there, but for everything that you all have done throughout the year for the town, thank you. Do one more thing, tell all your neighbors now to put it on their calendars so that we can actually have enough of a turnout to have a decent town meeting. Please promote it. Thank you.
Good time.
Seven.
Planning board? So I went back.
Well, the other part of planning goes back there too.
Oh, he is too?
Yeah.
But she ranked him out, I get it. All right, that's what I got.
You made the right move there, you made the right move. Planning board, as you know, we went through and we updated a lot of our bylaws this past year, and we need to clean up a few other little things on that, and then our next step is to move into master plan. It's gonna take a couple years. Seems like just when we get everything all updated, everything changes. And then there is more stuff to change, but it's job security. We know what it is. And I definitely like the idea that you are not spending your money before you're seeing it. Because a lot of people, why haven't we done this one? And it takes time for it to get here. There hasn't been anything. And I guess really that's it. I think you guys are doing a great thing. Jeff does a great job over there. And any questions or anything, feel free to call the planning director.
Good answer.
Jane, in the planning director, how much, is he full-time now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
We have a real one full-time.
full-time, and he's works by himself.
Well, him and Jane Garney is the admin in
Mhm.
that office, and they work together on a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And they're pretty busy nowadays with everything
Yes.
that's going on. With all the stuff that's
All this stuff in.
coming into town, and
I'm
they're
seeing
not-
parts of it I never saw before that, this doesn't all stay in the planning office either. We have to visit.
Planning board, thank you. You guys are doing a great job keeping up with it.
We're trying.
Yeah.
And I just have a question on addressing the master plan. So when you guys are looking to redo the master plan, is there anything specific you guys want to focus on?
I think the first thing we have to do is review it all and see what's there, and see what needs to be changed. It's like everybody else, things have been changing more quickly than what we've done to keep up with it to address all of our plans and everything. So, it'll be somewhat like what we did with the bylaws. We just sit down and go through them. And it's hard to, with any board, you're not sure what the prior boards, what their intentions were, and you're trying to carry it through, and sometimes you get hung up on some things. It shows a lot in the bylaws and the master plan. You know, what were they thinking when they made this requirement? And some of the requirements, you don't need them anymore. It's changed. And some things the state and federal government have overridden us on, so.
Jean explained that the master plan is very interactive, so all the boards
Yes.
are always invited. Usually boards have a representative that kind of go to the meetings as sort of like a subcommittee that's sort of formed. So you definitely can
You
be
will have
part
a
of that.
voice. I mean, come to the meetings.
They're really great. It's they're fun and it's sort of that vision. I'm old enough to have been on that original. It's really envision what you want Charlton to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years out there. So it's actually it's really a fun, just a fun process to get all the ideas
And we had some
together.
meetings down here with all the boards and trying to get their visions of what it's gonna look like. CMRPC is now doing their, Vision 2050.
Yeah.
So we should be right there with them.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet 15 years ago, the master plan, Amazon wasn't even in business 15 years ago, right? So if you think of how things change and how,
Right, and
and the
the
dynamic.
size of the buildings.
Yeah, it's a little thing on the hill. I didn't.
It's just small little building.
Just a suggestion about the master plan. Have you gone back to look at the old plans back to 1970? And
Not yet.
see, just the progression of some of these things.
Right.
It's,
Yeah, but then when you have, but then you have town meetings that all of a sudden, one zoning change for 3 available lots that are 98 acres or more to allow them to go to 110 building height,
Right.
110 feet building height. You might as well just, that whole master plan, you might as well, I don't think you need to go back into the 70s to look at that at that point. You gotta come
progression of
on.
the history of it and how the town developed.
And there
can
was a
help.
reason why that, large of a size of that parcel was that way, because there's far and few in between.
Yes, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I think that's a real key, because when we think about our future, it's not just economic. I mean, we all moved here or decided to stay here for a reason. And culturally, how much do we want to evolve? And it's not necessarily a bad thing to say, you know what, we moved to Charlton for a reason, I don't want that necessarily to change. But that means you give up other things. So that's the balancing act of, granted, I don't think that it's a binary approach. I think you can find a nice Venn diagram in there and say, look, we can encourage development. But at the same time, you know what, we kind of like having trees in the backyard. So, that's what, I'm sure that the planning board especially, along with the zoning board of appeals and others, Curry and Senator Randy, that's gonna be the big challenge, along with Josh's EDC, et cetera, to say, how do we balance economic development with, I'll just call it quality of rural life? And that's gonna be our big challenge over the next decade.
And does the definition of rural life change?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
Remember the big conversation piece at the last master plan was the village district. That was the obsession, was having a village district and building up our downtown, having shops and
Walkable area.
I mean, it's just not quite there yet.
Quite happening.
Have dentist offices and, like I said, little cafes.
I don't know.
Still sounds great, but
I think you just have to know where you came from to know where you're going, to begin with. And I think this is a fascinating process, and I think you should be promoting it. People should have a say. to where they're going, you know?
Once we get into it, we're just sort of cleaning up the other part now. And
It's promoted as big.
Yeah, well, honestly,
yeah,
and quite candidly, it's gonna have a direct impact on the schools. Because, again, I'm literally making something up, but if zoning increased to say, not that I would ever condone this, to say that you can't build a house on less than 5 acres, well, that's gonna impact growth of people in the town and schools. But if you said, you know what, no, I'm fine with tiny condensed districts, that might encourage more students in. So I think especially on the schools, we have to have a direct line of communication on that to say, so now that we're gonna be growing for the next 10, 15 years, how is it gonna impact, potentially new and or renovated, well, not and or, but rather or renovated Shepherd Hill? Because that's gonna tie directly into the decisions that we're gonna make on our side, so.
And to our existing schools, the elementary,
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
capacity.
Absolutely.
For whatever it is that's being
'Cause Charlton-
brought forward in the master plan.
Because CES was last updated, I don't know, when?
Someone else help me with that.
Late 90s.
Yeah, late 90s, so that one's getting up there too, let's be honest, so.
Yeah, also, you mentioned 5 acres. When I was living in Hopkinton, Hopkinton had a 5-acre lot, and the state killed them.
Yeah.
You just can't do that.
Yeah.
It's snob zoning and a bunch of other things, so. 5-acre lot is good if you don't get as many people, but you just can't do it.
You're right.
Actually, we have
Good
a
luck.
trying to develop.
Okay, we are, I feel like we're ahead of Kathleen's schedule of getting us out of here at 8 o'clock. It's 7:43. Is there anybody else?
Yes, economic.
Josh, go right ahead.
Josh Saper, Economic Development Commission. So whereas last year we spent our majority of our focus regrouping, refocusing, this year we spent a lot of time kind of rebranding. Some of the discussion we were just talking about, where do we see the town, what do we want as development as a town, and putting together and reformatting all of our digital collateral. So as of last week, we officially relaunched an Economic Development Commission website.
Love it, by the way. Looks awesome.
Thanks, guys. So a lot of moving pieces of that, but one of the main goals of that was to put all of the information in one place, somewhere where people couldn't jump around very easily. It's right in front of you, really easy to navigate, but also crosses multiple different facets in terms of what the information you can get on there. So if you hadn't had a chance to take a look at it, I'm going to be putting some more information, reaching out to Charlton happenings and whatnot. But one of the things we put in there is a business directory for all the Charlton businesses, so that obviously people on there not only looking to see what they can do as far as development in Charlton, but they're going to see what businesses are there already. There's some other benefits that will come to that as well. But any feedback anybody wants to give us as well, we're willing to support. Our main focus right now will be on outreach, so soliciting, targeting, and focusing on really the Route 20 corridor. I don't know if anybody's seen the conceptual plans for some of the properties and redevelopment there, but spending a good amount of time on that, I think, was really well worth it in terms of what we spent for what we got out of there. As some of this pointed out, you have to know where you came from to know where you want to go. One of the conversations right now we're having is, can Main Street be connected in some sort of greenway all the way through to Route 20, and as we're trying to develop that corridor out as our business or economic corridor where all our businesses are going to go. I think that would position the town as something very unique, having some greenways that connect that large of a parcel, attract a lot of people, families, maybe come do some hiking, watch come in and see a concert later in the night, maybe add some different facets to Old Home Day, and I think just make the town unique, but at the same time really give us an opportunity to grow and attract some of those economic development to offset the taxes.
Just a quick question, because I know Overlook is looking at doing a lot of development up there. How would that fit in with Main Street?
Development in terms of what?
Well, they were talking about putting up more, I guess you call it a village and...
Yeah, kind of its own self-contained universe up there.
I think it is a lot of
that. Even more so.
Well, this is going to be open to the public.
Yeah.
So there'll be stores up there and things like that, and the public could go, I guess they want to make money off it to support Overlook. No, just how would that work with Main Street? I like the idea of bringing Main Street down to 20.
Well, so one of the things that I noticed when I came in, the predecessors there have spent a lot of time on this village district. The problem with the village district concept is, I understand the whole downtown area, but if you look at what's there already, there's no commercial property. So you're asking people to either leave their residence or take a residential property and convert it into a commercial property. If we look at this as development along Route 20 and what it takes just to develop a commercial piece of commercial property, I just don't see it. I don't think at the time probably made sense, but in the longer run, I don't think it's very feasible in terms of what you can attract there. So you have to do something else, right? So if you were to put if you have people coming there to take advantage of parks, trails, etc., maybe somebody will open up a coffee shop there. Maybe somebody will be apt to spend that or move out of that and convert that into a commercial property. But again, it goes into when they decided that, what was going on versus what's going on now. I don't think they took that into consideration. That was the first thing that I saw. Great idea, and I see what they were trying to accomplish, especially at that time, Route 20 wasn't really targeted for development or have the amount of properties it goes on now. But what's there commercially now is what's there. So unless you're going to change something drastically different, I don't see how that really happens.
Route 20 was always targeted for development. That was always part of the discussion. It just-
Well, some of the infrastructure wasn't there, some of the supporting surrounding, things weren't built out yet.
So are you identifying as a group the available land and you prospecting somehow, logistically speaking, the businesses that you want to bring into the town?
Not yet, I don't, yeah.
So now that the digital marketing is there, before the outreach was kind of grasping at straws because there was nothing there to present to them. Now that there's finite digital marketing, there's concise plans, there's a path moving forward for planning and redevelopment, in addition to what they've done already, I think that shows a progression to that's going to attract people that wasn't there before. Before, if you were the first person doing it, something Charlton, it was just an upward battle. Now there's a lot of synergies and things going on where it makes that totally.
Because I know last year you said at the same table that this is what you're going to focus on for the future to, solicit, for lack of a better word, prospect the businesses that will be feasible for the town.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I found us spending time on last year, like I said, was kind of refocusing, revisiting, what were past, what was the goal of the past, what is the goal of the future. But a lot of the materials and marketing that we had, it was just so outdated. Or there was a lot of things that were either in process that Andrew couldn't allow us to use or utilize yet, that now are. I mean, a lot of that website and content is all reporting from the last year or two.
No, the website is unbelievable. It's great. Good job. This is huge and it's easy. We can share it. Do we have a town brochure that is in a PDF or some kind of a digital?
We do, but again, and that was my goal in creating this. If you're going to recreate a brochure or do something that's living and can be updated constantly, there's a type of brochure that's somewhere on the town website. But again, I mean, it's putting Ted's at the pinnacle of Charlton.
It's a link, so yeah.
And you did say also that you will be looking forward to look on some kind of a business plan or a 5-year plan.
Yeah, I think now that's feasible, whereas before there was so much all over the place. I think now that everything's honed.
So now you have all the tools that you can bring them up and actually execute all those ideas.
Absolutely.
Super.
Yeah, I think as we do outreach, I think that'll give us more feedback into meeting objections moving forward in terms of what we're
Super. Positive note. We have the coffee roaster. We have a coffee roaster coming into the town. They just reopened the door.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many good things I have heard about their collaboration with you, all the help that they got through your board, and the e-permitting that Andrew, everybody worked so hard on. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that
So
was
thank you for
that
that.
was just
So nice to
streamlining
hear.
things and improving on it. So I think we're getting there for sure.
Good,
So
thank you so much.
Josh, this is
There-
probably a really
Kathleen, we
hard
have 9
question.
minutes left, and then I have, and
And Stefan.
did you,
but
and
I'm-
Stefan.
So I've lived in Charlton for almost 30 years. And after you pass Ted's on Route 20 going west, is the most disreputable, disgusting, horrible buildings, one after another after another. I don't know, there's 6 or 7 of them. They were there and looking just the same way they do today,
Sure.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously distressing to say you come from this beautiful town and then people see this. I mean, what do we have to do?
I think we have tools to address that now as before. If you've looked at the conceptual plans for some of those sites that you're mentioning, I mean, it's amazing. And
It's still private property, though. I mean, there's only so much you can do.
Sure, but I mean, we just had a conversation with Pete in terms of what it looks like to
Can't you do
develop
an
it.
eminent domain and rid the
No.
place of it?
I don't think we're there yet.
I would never, let's put it that way.
Kathleen, did you look at the conceptual?
Look at the conceptual drawings. I think that'll answer a lot of your questions.
Yeah, it'll spark up.
All right.
But
Keeping
to
track
say,
of
to say it's
beautiful
looked that way for 3 years, it's looked that way for 30
Correct me if I'm wrong in
years.
terms
Yeah.
of eminent domain, that's only
No.
going to come into play when they stop paying taxes, correct?
Oh, I don't even want to go.
I'm just telling you, I will never take private property by eminent domain for like economic development. It's such a slippery slope, I'm not doing it.
Oh, I don't think there's
Yeah.
any reason to, I'm just saying
No.
that the only time that I think that would even come up is if literally people
If-
aren't paying their
if
taxes and the
that's-
town sees it.
yeah.
Unless there's necessity of some sort.
I think, so Stefan,
Oh, Mike, you just-
Well, what I was saying, on the planning board, do you think about a food store coming in here?
That's one of the conceptual drawings as far as supermarket.
Everybody in the,
Is it true you signed up Trader Joe's? No, I'm kidding.
No, but that's certainly somebody we need to target and find out, but we've had conversations with different developers. It's a tricky business, but that's one of the conceptual designs for one of those properties. It was a supermarket, so.
Trader Joe's says we're not yuppie enough.
Yeah, not cool enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, they already did that.
Not yet. About 2000.
The demographic doesn't quite. So it's, to keep this rolling, because we're all getting a little. Stefan, sir.
Charlton
Library.
Library, I'm trustee. I've seen in my 20-some years of being a trustee, the library change from what I considered when I first moved into town, an 18th century library, to 16 years ago we joined the 21st century. The library has been providing incredible services to this community for those 16 years. And we will be continuing to do that. We do have some infrastructure problems that our library director is dealing with, along with the town administrator and the community. We'll bring up probably at town meeting. I assume some of those things are going to come up at town meeting. We pretty much kept services going throughout COVID. We were one of the first libraries to actually open our doors during COVID. And the result of that is I think we have quite a few more followers as the circulation numbers are, for the last 6 or 7 months, have been higher than any other library surrounding us, which means our library is being utilized very, very extensively. We do have a new position at the library. It's a snake whisperer. It falls under our director's domain, as we've had a snake visiting the library. Not a worm. I would expect some bookworms maybe, but this was definitely a snake that it's either the same one coming in from someplace over and over, but she has handled it today apparently, and we'll see if he or she visits again. Our new director, who will be on November 1st, fulfilling her first year, has been providing just some exceptional services to the community, and as trustees, we're very proud of bringing her in to replace Cheryl Hansen, who was absolutely a remarkable trustee, director from when we first opened our doors after the renovation. With my extra 4 minutes, I'll read a story.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Don't laugh though. You've got 3 minutes and 58 seconds.
Keep it for town meeting, we all know what you're doing.
I will say that I would like to actually contradict what was said by the town moderator. It's actually better if you don't show up at town meeting, because that gives me so much more power to make decisions for this town. Don't come in, just let me and the 20 or 30 other people who show up make those decisions for the town.
That's reverse psychology.
That's pretty good. That's it.
Stefan does always, every town meeting, you always do make us cross our Ts and dot our Is, there's no question about that.
Or sometimes find clerical errors.
Stefan, are the Friends of the Library back in business? Are they meeting now?
The Friends of the Library are organizing, putting in paperwork, and looking for new members, yes.
When are the meetings?
That I can't tell you. I'm not a friend of the library, I'm only a trustee of the library.
You should stop for that. I am no friend of the library.
Are there any other comments or anyone that I apologize if I overlooked anyone? I don't believe I did. Or are there any other comments?
Steve.
If not,
Exactly.
You got a minute left.
You're fantastic.
Don't distract him now, we're so.
I've got 2 minutes left. It's actually because I have to use the men's room, that's why. No, but seriously, thank you everyone for coming together. I think, I like this idea. It takes time out of our day, but it's a collaboration for the left hand knowing what the right hand is doing. We're all, obviously everyone here is bright, dedicated. They're all trying to do the right thing, but it's always good to get people together and share ideas. So thank you for coming. If we didn't call this meeting to order, I don't think we need to adjourn it, right?
We're adjourned.
Good talk, Steve.